I'm excited to get into your world and peel back the layers. So thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
Same from my side. Gracias.
Yes. So let's begin our journey with COVID. 5 years ago, we were wrapping our brains around this. So many things were happening. Ultimately, living through that time period, how much of living through that has influenced the way that you do work and live your life today?
It has. It has a lot. Especially because even though I teach meditation and I love my sitting meditation alone time, but I also love people. And during the COVID, that was one of the things in terms of then you see a person and you have to walk away in the sense you have to have distance. You're walking, taking a walk, and you suddenly see somebody and it's a human being, and yet you have to maintain your distance. So just that was something very, very different, and something which took me a lot of my mindful practice to, I think for all of us, we had our own solutions. Plus, I think work-wise also, it made a difference in terms of a lot of work for most of us became online,
Yeah.
which in a sense worked a lot because then you kind of cut down the travel time even now, even though things have changed, but yet that kind of helps. Also, what I felt was that before I was teaching, right now I'm just into meditation teaching. But before that, I was into life coaching. Before that, I have a psychology background. I worked in HR in the corporate world. Um, but when I all through these years and in the corporate world also, I was moved from HR into training and development. So led a lot of workshops on project management skills, stress management, communication, leadership development. But all these years, something which I felt out of all the tools and processes that I had, if there was one tool which had the highest ROI, it was meditation.
Yeah.
So if the person is open and ready for it, it had amazing ROI.
Yeah.
So then I decided during the pandemic, as we all saw that mental health, it was always there, but it just came so much into our faces. And that's when I decided to wean off my life coaching clients. And thankfully, as per their readiness, we could do that and get more and more into meditation. So that's how it affected the pandemic for me.
Yeah. So if we got into exactly what you do right now in 2025, I put you in front of a bunch of sixth grade students, 12-year-olds, it's career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
It's just nice that you say that because we actually during the pandemic did a lot of work with the school children.
Yeah.
Even the adults were, of course, having our own suffering, but even the children were also. So we did a lot of work for the educators, and we do that. And one of the grades was the fifth and sixth grade. How I would explain is that I would say, like you have a teacher in your class. So I'm also a teacher, and I teach people how to be calm, how to be happy, how to be more kind. And you know what's the best thing? That when you're actually more kind, more happy, more calm, kind, not only is the world a kinder place, but also what we have seen is that you start doing much better wherever you are. So, for example, you're in school, or your teacher's teaching, or your parents are at home or in office, wherever, whoever is, it starts to get even more better
Yeah.
because you start doing your things more better, stuff like that. That's
Yeah.
how I would kind of explain.
That's excellent. So what did you want to be when you were like 12 years old? What was your dream life?
I don't think I had by that time figured out what my dream life was, though I had been
Yeah.
introduced to meditation. So I'm
Yeah.
originally from India. Now I'm, of course, based in Boston.
Yeah.
So in India, a lot of us, when we are around 9 or 10, not all of us, but a lot of us get initiated into meditation.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with me. So I knew about all that, but I still hadn't figured it out.
Yeah.
I think for me, Joe, what was really the burning question, which even before that was, why is there suffering in this world?
Yeah.
And I would get a lot of answers, like supposing somebody said karma, somebody said something else, but never resonated. And it took many years for me to kind of figure out why is there suffering. And I think once you realize the source, then it's so easy for you to do something about it.
Yeah.
But that I hadn't really figured out. Sorry.
Right. No, that's fine. No, that's an answer in itself. So I'm curious, take me back to your childhood and what were these foundational elements that have led you to helping people get to a more peaceful place, to meditate, and to have this career that you've had?
What a beautiful question, because it allows me to touch upon what I feel is almost like as if it was all preset
Yeah.
for me to do the kind of work that I'm doing, and also in the location that I'm based in. So, of course, meditation in different parts of the world, all cultures have it in their own beautiful and unique ways. But mostly, what I kind of teach are in terms of mindfulness or yogic meditation, which is from the Eastern wisdom traditions. But my parents were from different religions. So right from the beginning, my mother was a Christian, and my father was a Hindu. So they kind of gave us a glimpse into their worlds, into their
Yeah.
religions. But main message was be kind, be sincere. But that actually gave me a way to blend the East and the West. So right now I'm based here, but I think that kind of came from there.
Yeah.
And also, as I think as a child, just my nature, I was a little sensitive. So I was the one who would be like getting all the animals who would be hurt on the road, and really calling up people. Why can't we do something about this and stuff like that? So I always felt pain, and at that time I didn't know how to when I'm feeling and I'm suffering. So there is one, in mindfulness, we say that there are two arrows. One is pain. So pain is always going to be there. That's part of different experiences that one has,
Yeah.
which is one arrow. And the second arrow is that we shoot to ourselves, which is suffering, which
Yeah.
is where we have a choice. But I didn't know how to stop that. And it
Yeah.
would, so I would feel that. So I think as a person, I was like that. And that's where the question came up. And then slowly over the years, I moved into, after my schooling, I went into psychology. I thought so it's Western psychology. I did my undergraduation in that. And now I'm able to see the commonalities. So, for example, a Jung would say a particular thing, oh, that kind of matches with what the Eastern wisdom traditions say. But at that particular point of time, again, I did get some answers, but not really. Worked in the corporate world, had a wonderful time in HR. And then when I moved into training and development, and based on what I was feeling and based on what other people, the feedback I would get, I felt that this was where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
And then, as you know, I just told you that the highest ROI technique was meditation. So that's how it kind of flowed.
So the one thing about meditation, it's kind of like yoga. And for people to visualize how this works, like people I think can visualize yoga a little easier than meditation, because of the exercise nature. So if you were to paint a portrait for somebody out there that's curious as to how meditation works, how would you set up the scenario of where you would be and what you would do and how you would follow through on a meditation session?
Beautiful. So I think you said that if I was to explain to somebody,
Yeah.
so first I think I would look into, does this person really, is he open to it? Is he willing for it? Because what's the reason why? So typically it would be either it could be I want to be a little less stressed.
Yeah.
I'm very stressed. I want calm. Or it could also be that you have people who are already doing well and they want to do even better. So that's why you have a lot of NBA athletes, a lot of corporate leaders, leaders around the world also doing it, who are at the top of the game, and especially when you look at these athletes, and yet they realize the power of from good to great, great to greater.
Yeah.
So either what is the reason why they're coming, and then say they're new to the meditation. I would explain to them as like I would say, like you go to even before I tell them what exactly to be done in terms of the one, two, three steps. I would say that just like you go to the gym and you practice a particular different kinds of things that you do in the gym. So, for example, you're putting your arm up and down, and now one arm up and down, you'll be like, what difference does it make? It doesn't do anything. But over a period of time, it's going to lead to strength, and that strength is maybe going to make you be more healthy, have more well-being levels. You maybe right now there's a lot of absenteeism at work, but there'll come a time when you would not need to take so many sick days, so your work will improve and you might get a promotion and stuff like that. So that's how I explain. And then I would say there's the same thing with the kind of meditation that we teach in terms of mindfulness, or like you said, yogic meditation. So where I look at it as mindfulness is based on yogic meditation, because if you go right to the history where it came about from, so in India, yoga was there when mindfulness came about. And if you really look into yogic meditation also, it's all about mindfulness, but in different ways.
Yeah.
But say we're looking at the breath. I would say that if you're comfortable with the breath, because some people are not, and it's very important to do it as per the comfort level of the person. So, because in the pandemic, as you notice, some of us developed respiratory problems. So,
Yeah.
then the breath may not be the best object of meditation. So, whichever, if the person is comfortable with the breath, then I would say that just like that arm that you go up and down in the gym, so we're going to focus on the breath. And your mind will wander because that's the nature of the mind. It's called the monkey mind. So, it will wander. But every time it wanders and you become aware, with very gently, tenderly, just bring it back to the object of meditation, to the breath. It's absolutely natural for it to wander and just bring it back. So, doing it in a very kind way because we say mindfulness and then we say heartfulness. So, it's so important to do it in a way which is compassionate to yourself. And then, of course, you're able to practice with others. And then I would go into the steps. So I would say if it's something that you want to start off with, I would suggest. I know sometimes some teachers would suggest 10 minutes, 15 minutes, but I'm absolutely okay with even 1 minute. There is definitely a benefit in a particular posture. So we like to keep our spine erect. But then for a beginner, it may not be something which they may be able to do for a little while.
Yeah.
I would suggest just go as per your unique and beautiful path of least resistance. And then slowly, as you come to a place wherein you're able to practice, you'll yourself see a difference. And then you'd want to keep your head and back aligned. But if you're not, you start off with that. I would suggest having a time which is free for you in a day. And if on a particular day you're not able to do it, for example, doesn't matter. You come back to it whenever you're ready to.
Yeah.
But most important, Joe, what I usually suggest is that be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
If on a
Yeah.
particular day you haven't managed to do it, it's okay. Maybe next time, next day, you can always come back. That's
Yeah.
how I would answer that.
That's great. What a great answer. So, who's been an inspiration for you? Who's been kind of that heroic force for you to find your way and who you are in this life?
I wish I could tell you. Many people have added in, and I'm so
Yeah.
thankful. Teachers, even people who I have never met, but just by the fact that I've read about them. So lots and lots of people have. I don't know if I can say one person.
Right. Yeah.
I
So let me ask you this. When did you realize meditation was the medicine that was going to help you and that you wanted to teach others? Did you have a moment, a revelatory moment?
um, I think for me, it was like a journey. So over a period of time, and I myself started getting the benefit of it, and then I started teaching, including it. Yes, I was definitely one thing because I remember that when I used to do my corporate workshops, so somebody suggested to me that in your corporate workshops, even though it's very, very corporatized and usually people may not be open to it, but just include something which is palatable to them.
Yeah.
And I started including a body scan. And Joe, there was a difference. In the workshop, if I would do without the body scan and with the body scan, people showed up so much more. The contributions, the sharing, the learning, everybody benefited. It was like they benefited, I benefited, the company benefited. So I felt that this was like a win-win situation. I wouldn't call that an aha moment, but over a period of time, I started seeing that how this is working. And then, I teach meditation not just, of course, in the corporate environment, but in schools, in yoga festivals. And every environment is different, and you go as per the readiness of the audience. So when you go to a yoga festival, then it would be more deeper. Not that one can't do it in the other scenarios, but one has to see where the students are mostly from. Because even in some of my community workshops, I've had people coming up to me and asking very deep questions. So that's when we can actually go into those. But um, when I realized, remember the question that the burning question which I had in my childhood, why is there suffering?
Yeah.
So when I realized that who suffers, who really suffers, and so like can I tell you a story?
Sure.
A little parable or an anecdote.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is about the Himalayas.
Yeah.
So there was a teacher there who used to teach meditation and been there and very supposed to be like this really enlightened person. So a man goes to him and says, "I'm suffering. Can you please help me?" So he says, "Do you know you're suffering?" He says, "Of course I know I'm suffering. That's why I've come. I want relief." So he says, "If you know you're suffering, then you are the knower of your suffering, and the suffering is the known. You are the seer, and the suffering is the scenery. or in Sanskrit, which is ancient language
Yeah.
in India, you are the drishta and the suffering is the drishya. So, this teacher, what he's trying to do something extremely powerful. He's trying to bring a gap in between the person
Yeah.
and the suffering.
Yeah.
And this gap is life giving. Why is this life giving? Like, for example, give you an example. Say you come back from office every day and you get stuck in traffic jams and you don't like it, and the people waiting at home and you want to reach home early, and you get overwhelmed and frustrated every day. And then one fine day, as you're coming around the same time that you come back from office, you decide to go for a hot air balloon ride. So you are up in the hot air balloon, and now you're looking at the hot air balloon apparently goes to the same highway that you take every day. Now, from the distance, you're looking at those cars and the twinkling headlights. They seem like stars.
Yeah.
The distance doesn't make it overwhelming.
Sure.
And if you can get that distance, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So when you do that, then you can't have a problem, but you can look at it from a different point of view. You can look at it from solution.
Yeah.
The second part of this is very interesting is that the person says, okay, I'll think about it and I'll contemplate and I'll come back to you. So he goes back home, he thinks about it, he says, yeah, this makes sense. So he goes back to the teacher and he says, I've got what you wanted to explain to me. I'm peaceful. Immediately the teacher says, you are not peaceful. You are the knower of your peace. Because you know what was happening? Something very, it's a trap which a lot of us fall into many times in different topics in our lives, in different phases, which is that we start identifying with the emotion, with the thought. But whereas when you can take that gap, now if that emotion is overwhelming, you can do something about it.
That's interesting. What a great story. I had a friend years ago that told me that he would get really nervous going to family gatherings. It was his in-laws. And someone told him, go in with no expectations.
Beautiful.
And it totally, completely alleviated all of that stress. And I think about that now when I go into things. Just literally have no expectations. Even if you've been in there before and it happened a certain way that was good, still go in with no expectations. Because then that way you'll be surprised every time.
Whoever told him that, in his own unique and beautiful way, told him exactly what we practice,
Yeah.
which is that we call mindfulness as practicing present moment, non-judgmental awareness.
Yeah.
So the moment I think your friend was able to get to a place where there's no expectations, he was able to no judgments like, oh, they are bad, they've always been bad, or they've been this good, or whatever, nothing. So Viktor Franklin has this beautiful quote that between stimulus and response is a space,
Yeah.
and the space is your freedom to choose your response,
Yeah.
and in your response lies your growth and your freedom, something like that. I hope I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, what happens is that your friend was able to do it just based on the what he was told. What we do in our meditation is that we practice that same no expectation, no judgments, no this, just the awareness of. So, for example, if Joe comes up to me and he says, Sonal, I'm very angry. And I'm like, how angry are you? Every part of me is angry. And I say, Joe, 99% of you is angry and 1% is aware that you're angry. That's how you know you're angry.
Yeah.
1% awareness is what we're practicing, that no expectation, no judgments. So it's in
Yeah.
the present moment. And what we do is we usually do it firstly on the breath. So it's like a pilot project
Right.
because usually for most of us, breath is non-resistant. It's always available with us in the present moment. So you can do it anywhere, wherever you are, wherever you feel ready to and you think you can. And then from the breath, we go on to the thoughts in the meditation. So sometimes it could happen that an uncomfortable thought comes up. Of course, depending on how your own process, your own unique and beautiful path of least resistance, you look at the thoughts in a way, the same way, that you are not the thinker, you are the observer of your thought. So
Yeah.
let everything arise in your mind. Let it arise. You are now watching it. This distance is so empowering and so life-giving because you're here, you're not here.
Yeah.
And then you start doing it in your daily life, which your friend was able to do in that situation,
Yeah.
which you start doing it actually in your daily life in that sense. So you bring mindfulness to every area.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. In the pursuit of being mindful and meditative, it's good to have a balance in life between family, friends, and business and everything that you do. How do you do that every day? What gets you up to find that balance, to find that peace in your life?
Are you asking specifically for me or for anyone who's meditating?
Well, I guess probably both. Just like how do you imbue that in clients and how do you practice that yourself?
Okay. So for clients, I would say first I'll come with the clients. I would say again, like I always say, go as per your unique and beautiful path of least resistance. Maybe for you, it's just 1 minute that you can manage, and slowly you increase to 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Once you yourself start seeing the benefit, you will feel the inspiration to continue to make it 10, 15 minutes or however much one wants to be. Uh, as per me, my own practice, again, I've been practicing since my childhood, and I don't say that this is for everybody. And here I just before since you mentioned yoga, so there is this teacher of yoga who had come to the West, DKS Iyengar. So you call it Iyengar yoga, which is one of the, not that he coined it, but he was known for that.
Yeah.
Um, and he used to say, don't ever go to a yoga teacher until unless he or she does not have their own personal practice of minimum 2 hours. So they're themselves centering themselves and coming to you. So for me, it's almost like 3 to 3.5 hours in a day. But then I make sure that it's early morning so that by the time, the day starts, I'm like ready. And then again at night and then in the daytime also. And then you have a lot of mindful practices, just like a 1 minute pause, if anyone can take just 3 breaths.
Yeah.
That's it. And then proceed in your day with awareness. So a lot of times somebody may not be able to do a huge, long, I mean, even a 10-minute meditation. But
Yeah.
can you do 1 minute pauses during the day? If you don't want to do the breath, can you just bring 5 senses? So 5 things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, 2 things, 4 things that you can, all the 5 senses, and come to a place wherein you are just centered. Senses are a beautiful way of coming into the present moment non-judgmentally. Or can we just ground ourselves? Can you just bring attention to your body or to your feet? Just feel the ground beneath your shoes. Just simple exercises. So it
Yeah.
need not be just
Yeah.
sitting meditation, a long one.
Yeah.
Many.
But the interesting part of you saying that is that I think there's a lot of people that already do meditation and they don't realize it. I remember listening to an interview with Joseph Campbell at one point, and he said, when you think in a benevolent way about family, friends, protecting your children, and just really kind of being the protector and kind of being involved in their lives. There's a level of meditation. And I think about that with prayer or when you're at the end of the day and you're doing that. It seems to me that sometimes people have misperceptions or they're not aware that they're meditating when they're already meditating. Do you find that a lot?
Exactly, like for example, running, or honestly, the objective is to get mindfulness to every area of your life. Like right now, you're here with me, but say you start thinking about the pizza you ate yesterday, or the friend that you're going to meet after this. You're not here. Your body is here, but Joe's mind has gone on. For me,
Sure.
for that matter, right?
Yeah.
And I also want to talk about Joseph Campbell. I'm so glad you mentioned him.
I love
Uh,
it.
why I'm going to talk? Do we have time? Yeah, we have 4 minutes, right? I don't know how much time do we have.
We can there's literally it can go probably 14 minutes, so we got time. We got a good
Yeah.
window.
So I want to get some one of my favorite characters, Star Wars. If
Yeah.
anyone's a Star Wars fan, they will know
Uh,
Yoda. Um, so Joseph Campbell, uh, one of his quotes which I love a lot is "Follow your bliss,"
yeah.
uh, and I think they're one of the most profound words ever uttered.
Yeah.
And Joseph Campbell, if anybody goes on the Star Wars official website, there is a page out there where they talk about his friendship or his relationship with George Lucas.
Yes.
And Joseph Campbell, even though George Lucas didn't really say this, but then maybe the influence was there. So Joseph Campbell was somebody who was influenced or who read up or who was deeply impacted by these texts which are from India called the Upanishads.
Yeah.
So the end of the Upanishads are called the Vedanta, which is the end, basically typically means end of the Vedas. So Upanishads is a section which are the end of these huge texts called Vedas, and Vedanta is the end, which is the Upanishads. And in fact, Joseph Campbell also wrote, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not getting the name of that book, but he wrote a translation of a book along with Swami Nikhilananda, who was from India, who'd come here in the US. And what Joseph Campbell, the main message, one of the main messages of this particular philosophy of the Upanishads is, of the Vedantas was Satchit Anand, which means I mean, I can go very, very deep, but I'll just, for the purpose of this, I'll just say it's existence, consciousness, bliss.
Yeah.
So he says, I couldn't understand what is existence mean. I couldn't understand what is consciousness, but I understood bliss. So I said, okay, follow your bliss.
Yeah.
And I think they're so powerful because
Yeah.
just doing what makes you happy. That's all you're saying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. there's so much comfort. There was an interview that he did with Bill Moyers years ago, and he was at Skywalker Ranch at George Lucas's ranch, and he just kind of really delved into all of it. And even you saying Sanskrit, he had mentioned that was one of the most original languages that's beautiful, and he talked glowingly about it. And even just doing these pilgrimages to India and all these other cradles of civilizations, and how he figured out how all of this comes together. And I wish people would listen to him more, because from a deity standpoint, he has such a positive outlook on our mortality, on our meditation, on our peace, on our bliss, on the way that we should be functioning in this reality that's not so dire as heaven and hell. There's so many levels of us. Like at one point, he said that forever is right now, eternity is right now. It, it
Beautiful.
it's a line that we draw every moment that we're alive, and it's so hopeful, you know.
So true, you know. And you're so right about it. And I think different cultures have, in their own unique and beautiful ways, spoken about this. Like the temple of Apollo in Delphi, in Greece.
Yeah,
One of the things inscribed is "Know thyself." And what Joseph Campbell was also referring to, that eternity is now.
yeah,
Why are we saying present moment? And then when you go to the Eastern wisdom traditions and you go deeper and deeper, you realize that this awareness that you're practicing, um, if I can say that, this is obviously for the advanced meditators, is actually you. And it looks like something so abstract concept. Um, but as you start doing the doable, practical, actionable techniques, then you realize that there is so much more to you. That, of course, this mind and body is magnificent,
yeah,
but that awareness that we are practicing
yeah,
just by watching our mind, just by watching our body, that in itself, why is that so empowering? Why is that? I've also been trained in somatic EMDR. So one of my teachers, who was a psychologist, psychiatrist in California, is practicing there. He used to say that I have no idea why, when my patients practice awareness, it just does something.
yeah,
Things just change, and for the better. And I have no idea why. So when Joseph Campbell, I don't know how much he mentioned in the interviews and all that, but typically the Eastern Mediterranean go a little bit more into deeper into that.
yeah,
It's something like how much time do we? Okay. Um, we There was a neurosurgeon, a scientist of yesteryears, Wilder Penfield, and he was very much interested into consciousness.
yeah,
And he did some experiments. And one of the experiments was in which one of his patients, he told him, he was stimulating a part of the brain. And when you work with the brain doesn't feel pain by itself. So in those days, apparently, you could do it without any anesthesia.
yeah,
So he told the patient that, can you move your hand up and down? Sorry, initially he said that he stimulated and the patient moved his hand up and down. So he said, what are you doing? He said, I'm not doing anything. You are doing something to my brain, and that's making my hand go up and down. So he says, okay, now I'll stimulate the same part, but I want you to stop doing that. So do not move your hand up and down. So in one instance, the patient was able to get his another hand and stop it. In
uh-huh,
another instance, he was actually able to move it some other way
yeah,
rather than going the way it was going according to that particular stimulation.
yeah,
So, with this simple experiment, Dr. Penfield was able to get to the conclusion that there is a choice maker in all of us who's making choices. I want cappuccino, I want yogurt, I want milk, I want this, whatever choices. On a daily basis, he says, but this choice maker is not to be found. Like if I do a fMRI scan of Joe or of me, I can find only blood, bones, and tissues and stuff like that inside. But that choice maker is nowhere to be found.
yeah,
And he says that that choice maker can override the functions of the brain, the directions of the brain. So he says, I know where the command posted, but I don't know where the commander is.
yeah,
So that commander, which is so much more than this brain and this
yeah,
body,
yeah.
that is what I think Joseph Campbell may have alluded to, or I don't know how much.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's fascinating. And that was kind of some of the things that he was bringing up in this interview, just how much control and just how much our mind we can control it, just like with meditation. There's so many things that we can harness and take control over.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's why I think you have all these people who are, again, like I said, top of the game, like athletes and all, who are adopting it, NBA
yeah,
athletes, because they realize the value.
yeah, they certainly do. So, of everything that you've done in your life and accomplished and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
So much to brag, Joe. Where do I start?
Yeah,
No, but on a serious note, I would say one is, I think I would say, my ability to adapt.
Yes.
Uh, Not only in terms of as a person, but also my matter, what I present to people. So if I'm in a corporate situation, it's totally different the way you present it in a school, depending on the if it's for the educators or for the students, which level of students, which grade, or it is in a yoga festival, or it is a community group. So I think that I would be extremely happy about.
Yeah.
But what I would also mention is there's something which really, really, and it's so humbling. I think every instance wherein you can touch somebody in a positive way. I remember, Joe, years ago, this was when I had my life coaching work, and I used to post on my page, one of the social media pages. And I remember mother writing in on another post, and she said, my son died because of gun violence. And after months, I read this post, and somewhere it gave me a certain amount of relief.
Yeah.
And now, what do you say to a parent like this, And I just felt so humbled and so, somewhere that will always remain with me.
Yeah.
Or when I go into, say, the company, have you heard of this medicine, this drug called Ozempic?
Yeah.
Okay, so the company which makes Ozempic is Novo Nordisk, and we did some meditations for them, and they said that you're the first person who teaches meditations walked into our office, and I just feel so humbled that that touch that somebody trusted you enough.
Yeah.
So these are the moments I'm proud of. I don't know if proud of, but like humbled,
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
say
No,
more.
I totally get it. So let me ask you this. At the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, everyone that knows you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, Joe, I would answer this in two ways. One is, of course, at a personality point of view. So because I've studied psychology, so I would say I would call myself as somebody who can be very fun. I love dancing. I learn bachata. I learn salsa. I'm also something which a lot of people might find surprising. Very recently, I felt an impulse from a place of connection to try modeling. And I've just signed an exclusive contract as a professional model for commercial and print
Excellent.
with one of the very nice agencies out here, very beautiful people. So a lot of times people find that very odd that you're meditation and doing this, but
Sure.
I feel that you're so much more than just this mind and body.
Yeah.
And when from the place of connection, whatever impulse comes to you, follow that. Uh, so I would say that, and of course, I love my still time. I love going to depths,
Yeah.
and that's where I would say the second part of my answer, which is what I would say that who I am, Joe, is so much more than this mind and body. It's the awareness of it.
Yeah. That's wonderful. So if anyone wants to reach out, they want to hire you, they have questions, any of the good business, where do they go?
So they can come on our website, which is connectmeditation.com, CONNECTMEDITATION. They can also call me or email me at sonal@connectmeditation.com, or they can call me at my office number, which is 617-510-1080.
Okay. I will put all this in the show notes. What an absolute delight and pleasure. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thank you for your time and your presence.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
Hello, friends. Joe Dimino here. I just wanted to let you know that after 30 years or so, I have finally released my first book of poetry through the mighty Spartan Press here in Kansas City, Missouri. As the creator and host of both Neon Jazz Radio and the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino podcast, along with being a visual artist, I'm ready to embark on a new adventure and want you to be a part of it. You can get a copy online via Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and actually on the streets in Kansas City at the great Prospero's bookstore off 39th Street. You can also visit joedimino.com for links to the book, to more poetry, and everything in my world, including paintings. Thanks for all of the love and support over the years, and please dig the words.